Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Walls-Cox, who's filling in for Rogan. She wasn't able to make it today, so we'll have we'll pay homage to her by calling her name. And Ken Williams is Kendrick, my man, Ken. We on the same page. See, Rogan always thought that she and Kendrick were on the same page. Kendrick just doesn't want to, he doesn't want to disappoint her. But we're on the same page, my brother. Okay? I can say we can talk about that one because they can't handle that. They can't handle it. They'll be all over us.
That's an off-air
conversation. They'll be all over us, Ken. Who do we think we are? And the ones who'll be yelling the most, the exact same people we talk about. So I don't want to. But who I am going to talk about is and I'm going to be very firm on this. I'm going to be very strong on this. Is all of the people that I could put in every negative category who decide that we have a problem with allowing some Dominicans here. I don't know what in the world they're thinking.
It's heartless.
Okay, so let's deal with the number one justification that they have, and that is from the Christians, and I put in one fellow named McAlpine in this, who talk about taking care of our people first. Well, are we not? I mean, the reality is, first of all, let's look at this year's hurricane, Ragged Island, what do you call it?
Meguan and
Inagua. Mm-hmm. All those people, first of all, were brought to Nassau.
Yep.
Okay? Secondly, they were dealt with, they were taken care of, and then relocated back to a place where there's some stuff.
Where they can live.
Mm-hmm. I understand Ragged Island is a little bit more challenged. But they wanted to go back. The ones who wanted to go back and the ones who didn't go. Okay? And they will be taken care of. Okay? Yeah. That's the reality. And they have avenues to be taken care of. They can come to Nassau, they can go to family and other places, etc. Do you understand, people, the concept of nothingness? There is nowhere for them to go. So the fact that I don't know who this is. The fact that I'm going to have to call them back. The fact that there is nothingness and a wide range of people are reaching out to them to take 1, 2, 3, 10. How much people are we talking about?
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So, I wish this is the time when IRCA could just maybe give me a little pass, but I can't do it. Because you know what I want to tell them. Okay? It is absurd beyond belief. I'm volunteering, by the way. I'm doing it on the air, and it's more like spite. I don't know if I would have done it. I know that I do it through my tax dollars, but I'm volunteering. If one of those kids needs some school fees or something like that, give me a buzz, okay? Because one day, just one day, because it's going to happen, okay? I don't know. It could have happened. It's already gone through everywhere else except about 5 places.
It could have happened to us twice.
Right. Okay? It kind of went around us. Mm-hmm. And these same suckers, can I use that word on the air? Those same suckers would be the first one trying to get somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Okay? We should be able to label them. We should be able to put a stamp on their head to say, like a biometric thing that reads, I was the ass who said that no one should accept people from other countries, so please, I'm at the back of the line of being able to be evacuated.
I would like to think it doesn't represent the majority of Bahamians, though. What do you think? What's your reading?
You know what? I haven't even, what I've made a decision to do is not even read any of this garbage. Mm-hmm. I don't need to. There is nothing, please text me, write me, because I need to know a justification you can give me that would make me say, you know what, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, let's not take them in.
Yeah, there is none.
It's just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And it's heartless.
It's this Trumpian thought process, with the Syrian refugees, okay, which are, these people are bombed out and people are talking about terror. Okay, so let's just say Trump may have had some rationale. They may be terrorists. You think the people from Dominica are terrorists? Come on.
Yeah.
Give me a break. There is no rationale.
It's selfishness. And I don't know if they appreciate that they're starting from the bottom. They have to start all over.
Let me tell you something.
They have nothing.
I'm going to say this directly to McAlpine because I saw him in his statement, okay? I don't know what kind of God it is that you deal with. I don't know what it is that you handle. You come and no, don't come. I don't want to waste my time. Send a message of one rationale that you could tell me why we would have a problem taking 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 people. Tell me one. Because don't mention, and I'm not a religious person, but don't mention the word God, because I will whatever I got going on with God, I'm going to use to condemn you, because I know that anything that is a God doesn't work in that manner. So whatever you got quoting, whatever rhymes you got, and I was a big fan of McAlpine, not no more. That is just heartless, and we've gone from xenophobia, okay, we've crossed the line of xenophobia to meanness.
Yeah.
This is just mean. And I don't know what kind of, sometimes I think that they just think that they'll get some mileage because they can pander to the other numbskulls.
Well, I'm happy the Prime Minister isn't listening.
No,
I'm happy and not moved by it.
Yeah. So he should put him in the back bench. Whatever bench in the back of the back bench.
I have a feeling that's where
it's crazy.
he will be.
And by the way, no, I don't think he should be punished politically because he's entitled to his views. He's entitled to his views. But I get to condemn him. Okay? I get to condemn him for being so mean-spirited. And this is why people like me have a problem with the whole religious thing. It's not consistent.
Well, yeah.
It's just not consistent.
Their actions don't follow through.
These are people who talk about no, you can't have marital rape.
And women shouldn't be equal to men.
I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't sit here and I got chastised and I listen. I've been listening since whatever year that was with the referendum, and I hear the amount of people who call people stupid and say things are stupid, and the chastising that I got for saying that, and I hear it every day, and I hear worse stuff every day, and so fine, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to put myself in that position to be called by those people or to be chastised by those people. They know who they are. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, you think that there's something in the world that everyone could agree on, hey. Now, maybe there's some provisos.
Yeah, this is a humanitarian crisis, though. I mean, it is the most basic. You don't even have to have a big heart to sympathize and to empathize with these sorts of issues.
In the way that they always talk about tithing comes back on you in whatever fold they got going on.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, that's what their whole thing is. You put the money in, you get something back. That's their whole, scheme or scam or whatever you want to call it, okay? So guess what? You know what you just did? You did a reverse tithe.
Karma.
Okay?
Right.
Yeah. It's good. That action is coming back on you in a let me put it in the Bahamian phrase, in a stink way. It's coming back stink. Okay, I'm done with that. What else is new?
It's good to get it out.
Yeah, because it's absurd. It's there's this line, Erica, where you can sit and agree on policy and politics and all that, but this is not that time.
Yeah, this isn't one of them though.
It's almost if you're saying like, okay, so I see someone in the water drowning. So you know what though? Let me go check to see where my people are first before I put a hand out to grab you. Meanwhile, your people on land.
Yeah.
I can't use the words, but I curse them, man. So that's that. Now, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. You go into that Hands for Hunger thing, eh?
Yes, Paradise Plates on Saturday, definitely.
You're the big JEC involved in that?
No,
okay.
I am.
Okay, you're involved in that.
I'm involved.
Okay, I thought the JEC had something to do with that.
No, he's supportive, but I'm
Didn't
on
have
the
some
board.
shares or something last time?
He did. Well, he donated to the silent auction.
Oh, but you're on the board.
I'm on the board. Yes.
Ooh, we didn't know that, did we, Ken? When we were having a chat.
You knew that, Ed.
I think I did know that.
You did know that.
But I knew you were somehow engaged. But okay, no problem, no problems.
Yeah.
Zalika and all the crew. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a good. Listen,
it is a great organization.
It's a great organization. I heard something that I was very distressed about, but I won't. I'll let you, when we have the break, I'll talk to you about it. It has nothing to do with them. Okay. It has to do with some other parties. I was shocked, but, everyone has their own thing. So, yeah, I mean, Alana, who, it's amazing. See, now these are people. See, so here's a woman who, at this stage of the game, I don't even know if people know she's associated with Hands for Hunger.
Oh, well.
I mean, they know in the sense that, but she
But
stepped
they don't
back.
know the story, right? Well, she founded it when she was very young with a group of other students.
Got
I mean,
the good Samaritan law passed by pushing that through.
An incredible thing, and she's still involved.
But she isn't in there like this is all about her.
Right?
Thing.
No,
That's what I mean.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So that's admirable because that doesn't happen a lot.
Yes.
People get in a thing and then that's them.
And then they want to
like,
control.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, no,
so,
it's a very professional organization.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, the reason why it continues to work and work so well is because it is not the domain of one person. They have allowed it to grow for others to make contribution and to allow it to grow. When one person dominates something like that, it's usually stunted.
Yeah, and I also think what helps is our mission is really focused, and the team is small, and it's a working board. Right. So there's not a lot of opportunity to get wrapped up in politics and all the other things that can be the pitfalls.
But it's surprising, though, even, and I know you know, because I know. I know everything. It's surprising, though, the kind of some little pettiness. I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about other influences.
Just in general.
It relates to things that y'all do, and kind of like the pettiness that's involved because it needs to be me versus needs to be them. Right. That type of thing. Again, the cause isn't the thing. It's about the me.
Right.
We'll be right back. Favorite place. Hi. Anyway, our guest this afternoon is going to be Darnell Osborne, who is the chairman of the BIPL on the back, BIPL/back. So it's going to be interesting. We'll talk about the past, the present, the future of BUC. Big challenge. I think whoever is the chairman and or general manager, because it depends on who they are, who takes the kind of public role, right, is almost in a kind of predicament like the national security minister is in. You're dealing with a scenario.
There's a no-win. It's hard to.
I mean, that one's a little easier than the national security guy because he's got to stop all crime.
But it's the same principle.
If the lights go out, you're a failure.
It'll be interesting to see who the new GM will be next year.
Yeah. It's not a GM problem. I'm eating nuts on the radio. Sorry.
You don't think it's a GM problem?
Oh, I mean, it could be.
Right.
You can have a numbskull, but the reality is there's infrastructural, capital, investment issues. Okay? And this is why Bahamians need to check this off, because what they don't understand is, I'm 59. I don't recall any period of time in my history where we've had a reliable power source. True. I'm just telling you, that's me.
Yeah,
okay?
No, that's true.
Maybe someone else in another scenario, but I don't recall it. That means that someone has to come and reverse, at the minimum, 59 years of screw-ups. Okay? All infrastructure. There's stuff down there. I know, I got inside stuff. There's stuff down there, like, for instance, the brain, something they call the brain, which basically diagnoses issues. So when something happens, they can diagnose the fault from a control panel. Now, I don't know if it's been replaced recently, but that was like 35 years old, and I think it might have blown up recently. And as a result, or at least in danger, then they went to go and you can't just replace it. You got another numbskull down there. I'm not going to call his name, who in the former scenario was saying, no, we don't need this. But yet, you don't order those things,
right?
And, like when the thing happens,
and get them in 2-day shipping.
You can't go to Kelly's.
Right.
Okay, you need to have forward thinking and plan that this thing needs to be replaced in advance with something in the 2000s. This thing was like 35 years old. The company don't even exist.
Wow.
I'm going to chew some more nuts.
But the thing is, though, the population has increased. The infrastructure has increased. I mean, all of this, the load has gotten larger and larger, and they're just never able to keep up.
Well, load is one thing, but I mean, I don't know what kind of financial situation they used to be in many years ago. But if you have capital challenges, you can't invest for the future. You're just investing in fixing and maintaining. And in fact, I say that, but up until recently, even the maintenance issues were suspect. Okay, so I mean, they're going to hit me. My good friend Paul Maynard's going to hit me. He'll probably send me a text or something. A huge percentage is in benefits, and I'm not going to say, but I could tell you, you got situations where, major executives, and I'm not talking about just the BPL people, the Power Secure, when they retire with some major stuff. There's no contribution. Mm-hmm. Major stuff.
Right.
Major pension, major gratuities.
Right.
Okay. So, and that's why, you hear this discussion about personnel and staff. We got to find a way to deal with it. I mean, you don't want to displace people out of their livelihoods. I get that. But we got to find a way to transition, people into other fields, other areas, because you just can't carry the load.
Well, it's a tough decision. I mean, a tough decision has to be made.
And it is probably the singular thing, and I want you to think about this, that impacts this economy. Other things impact it. I'm talking about financial, like crime, because crime obviously has a financial thing to it, element to it, if you have to buy security, etc. But if you reduced your electricity bill by 50%, okay, what that is a raise.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, now it's not 50% of your salary raise,
right,
but it's a raise, right?
That's extra money.
If you're spending
$800 a month.
Let's just say, do a number, say $5,000 a year.
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, that's a $2,500 raise. A lot of people ain't getting $2,500 raises. You don't get 10% raises. If you're making $50,000 a year, you don't get a 10% raise,
right,
which would be $5,000. You're lucky to get a 5% raise.
Right.
So you get a raise. And you're getting that raise forever. Okay, because that's money you're saving forever. So that immediately takes some pressure off there. And then the impact it has on your appliances, things that get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So, we need to, the impact it has on business and businesses, not spending, probably other than accommodation, probably business is spending the most money, other than payroll, is on energy.
Yeah.
So now that's money they can reinvest, they can expand, whatever the deal is. So anyway.
But BPL will have to spend a great deal of money.
It's a quagmire.
Yeah, it's a quagmire.
It's a quagmire.
Yes, it is a quagmire.
But you know what? Money spent. This is where the overall management of this country is involved. And I was thinking about this as I was in the loo, that we're talking about not allowing some Dominicans to come here, which may or may not cost the government some dollars, but yet we'll send 13 people to the Olympics, none of whom are athletes. Okay, all right. So why?
Good question.
Okay, so if you start cutting back on those things, and looking at how we can save on expenditures, we got Skype. You don't need to go to every conference on the planet. Okay, those were when they didn't have. Because if you think about it,
FaceTime.
Before they had planes or easy travel, you didn't go to conferences. You probably telexed or something.
Right.
Okay, so now let's just
go back. That would have been a little while ago.
Yeah, but now we got the capacity to be at the conference.
Virtually.
Yeah. Okay, so we, and that isn't everything. Some things require, face-to-face, mano-a-mano, tete-a-tete, all the ahs.
Right.
Okay, but I mean, I think management is the key, and between wasting money, money that's been lost through corruption, bad planning, there's money to be found, but it's an investment in the future, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
And if we all have to pay for it at the end of the day, I'd rather pay a couple extra dollars so that this country can be sustained in the future for my kid to be able to live in a more efficient,
Right. I just have to feel secure that what's being spent is being spent properly on what it should be spent on.
You know how you have to look at it? This just occurred to me. You're going to like this one. You know, there are people, there are countries that make a lot bigger sacrifice in the present for the future of their country. War. They go to war. They lose their life. Okay? And why? Because, and those countries, you look at them, not all, a lot of them can say, you know what, we've fought for this freedom. We've put this down. You know, even the civil rights movement or the women's rights. Yeah. So money can be, that's the least you can put in for your children's future, to pay a couple dollars more. You know, so I just think that it's worth it to just do the right thing, cut out the wastage, and, you know, we'll be okay. You know. So what else is going on? We kind of preempted a lot of... is Darnell here yet? Not yet.
Well, we just set the stage.
We are set the stage, yeah. What else is in the news? By the way, Minnis cried.
Yes,
I like that.
I didn't see it myself, but I read about it.
I like that.
Good, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
I don't know why, but I like that. It shows humanness.
Yes, it does. It does, and I'm surprised there hasn't been some response. Or I haven't seen any, but then again, I'm not on social media, so I don't know. But I think it shows that he has a heart. It shows that he has a heart.
Okay, so that's good if she has a heart.
He.
I got to go down. I'm going to go downstairs and get our guests because I don't think they know where we are. You know, I don't think they know the thing. You know, did you buzz them in? Oh, they're coming. They're just telling us they're coming. Okay. Well, that's good. See, we facilitate our guests. But now, having said that, you know, again, going back, I just want to just go back for a couple more seconds. I'm jumping all over the place to this mean-spiritedness thing. Can you believe that in the United States of America, they have a Senate where only 3 senators on one side decided to vote against the health care bill? And I'm thinking, what are these other people thinking?
They are Republicans, Ed.
Yeah, but so are the 3 people.
No, but I mean, those are 3 decent Republicans.
Yeah, but you can't. It's not possible to have that many non-decent people.
Yes, it's very possible.
You know,
we are living it.
You know what I think? I think that it's calculated. I think they'd say, you know what? I'll vote no for the political side, but I know that these 3 people are going to stop it.
I see. So you're saying, okay, they're like, okay, it's not going to go through anyway. Collins and McCain, they'll take care of that.
They'll take care of that, right. Because we don't have anything to lose in that situation.
But don't the majority of Americans, they didn't want that repeal and replace as it was being presented, this last one as well.
Right, but they weren't about the majority of Americans. They weren't about Republicans who vote for them.
Right. But I would imagine that some of their supporters would be in that. I mean, the backlash was huge.
Well, yeah, but they're calculating this. They're calculating, the backlash will have more impact, the repeal would have more impact than the not voting would have. It's all calculations.
Well, that's a good way to think about it, that those other Republicans just said, we know this isn't going to pass.
They might have even planned it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they could now go to their base and say, well, I voted for it.
Right. Nothing I could have done.
Okay. I know we're all rednecks. All the rednecks, we voted for it. So vote for us.
You think they'll try again? I mean, this is strike 3.
And apparently it gets worse and worse. The bill gets worse and worse.
Yep.
Okay.
It was millions more this last time.
Yeah. And it's like nothing except let's just take the money and let's give it to the rich people.
But you know what's incredible? The Republicans have complete control. They have control of the House. They have control of the Senate. They have control of Washington. Mm-hmm. They have been talking about this for 7 years or more, and they're incapable. They can't get it through.
Well, they can't get it through. Excuse me, because it's almost as if they didn't think they would win the presidency, right?
Yeah.
And so they really didn't have a plan to replace it.
Nobody.
So what they realized
win,
is that we don't have a plan.
But they had 7. I mean, I know they were thinking at the end of that term, okay, we're probably not going to win. But wouldn't they have been thinking about that all the years that they were complaining about the Affordable Health Care Act, which many Americans didn't know was the same thing as Obamacare? Well,
remember now, for 7 years, they could not have won. because it was going to be vetoed.
But I know just in terms of being ready.
I don't think they thought they would need to be ready. Listen, first of all, I don't understand it.
I don't think they thought that until Trump was the nominee.
Right.
I thought they probably thought they had a chance of winning if they had a decent candidate, but
I don't think anyone thought Trumpster was going to win.
No. All right, I agree with you on that, but I thought they thought they probably had a chance until he was the nominee.
Maybe.
And then they probably thought, okay, we're not going to win this.
I don't know. Maybe anyone just didn't think of it. Maybe someone said, like, did anyone work on that? Oh, no, I thought you were working on it.
Where's the committee? What were you doing for 7 years?
But the Republican Party also has some major internal problems because you've got some nincompoops. You got some real nincompoops, man.
That's putting it
You see
lightly.
this guy, they just voted for the Alabama?
I know, right?
Oh, he's going to be fun.
All right. Me the popcorn.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with our guest. Darnell Osborne is going to be our guest from Bipple, and we'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've been invaded by people. That's my name for it. I'm never going to change. Because if you have BEC, you have to have people. I like to do initials, just for the fun of it. So we have the chairman of the board, Ms. Darnell Osborne. We have Mr. Whitney. I was going to say Houston. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say Whitney. Let me see. I got to look it up. Don't tell me. Hasty and Miss Nicola Thompson. And I'm not going. I got to read all this stuff. Look at this picture. This is a freaky picture, man. Anyway, so I'm not saying who it is. All right, it's Whitney's picture. Whitney's picture is a freaky picture. Okay, all right. So she invaded me with these people because she felt that she had to bring some technical people, which is, by the way, let me just say this to you. It kind of augurs well that you decided to do that because a lot of times people, they think they could, handle it themselves, but it's kind of a self-centric, thing that they think they're in control of things, but really they're not in control of it. So it's a good thing you bring your team. So, first of all, welcome. And did I mention that we have the chairman, Darnell Osborne? Did I mention that? No. I did?
You did. That was the first person you mentioned.
Okay, good. It took me so long to get to Nicole, I forgot that I even said Darnell by the time I got back to there. So thank you for coming. Let me put this microphone up to you so we can get, Okay. Thank you for coming. It was I suppose I want to say a pleasant surprise because you did tell me that you were close to announcing plans. So I'm going to feel thrilled because we're not going to talk about it now that maybe, just maybe, some of those plans might be announced today. That might be a thrilling thing for the show, Erica.
We might get a headline.
You might be getting something. But I want to thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us.
No problem. And hopefully we'll, because I told Erica, you realize that BPOL chairman is the equivalent of like national security minister.
Really?
You're doomed. Okay? Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're in a tough spot.
You're probably in a little bit better position than him. I used to have a brother-in-law who was in national security, and I said to him, you realize your life is over, right? Because you're not going to stop it. It doesn't happen overnight, no pun intended. And so people are judging you by a very simple measurement. The light off. Okay? That's it. Okay? So, by the way, let's talk about that. Is the light going to continue to be off for very long?
Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. We are in the process of starting or planning for our overhauls. So that will start in the cooler periods, November, December.
When there's less demand, eh?
Right. And at the moment, we have not only our equipment in Clifton Pier and Blue Hill, but we also have a rented equipment that we had to bring in for the peak season. So, to answer your question, early in the new year, you should start to see an improvement in your power supply. I didn't say the cost.
Right, reliability and cost. We're going to talk about all those things, but I'd like you to give, and whichever expert you bought or whoever you have with you, to answer the following question. Give us in a couple minutes or less the historical issue with BEC. We've never, I told Erica, in my 59 years, we have not had reliability. We've not had efficiency and I'm equating efficiency to cost. We've not had those things, and it probably has stunted our national progression, and people don't even necessarily get that. I think they're starting to get that now. Mm-hmm. But it's a major blight on our whole economic well-being. So give me that history. Why have we been in that situation?
Well, there are a number of things. First of all, BC is a government corporation.
Okay, now we know. Next question.
So, given that it's a government corporation, there are certain issues surrounding government corporations. Mm-hmm. One being political interference in terms of staffing, priorities, and that sort of thing. So traditionally, BC would have suffered from many years of not sufficient maintenance, overstaffing, to the point where BC, upon the formation of BPL a few years ago, inherited, or BPL didn't inherit, but BC has a $600 million legacy debt accumulated over the years. So in recent years, you would have a lot of instability in terms of RFPs being issued, nothing being done, the management company coming in, uncertainty. So pretty much we inherited a situation where we had to try and stabilize the environment, review the human resources, review the management corporation, the management team. And really that's the situation we found ourselves in.
Let me ask you this question, Darnell. During the hurricane of Matthew, I found myself defending BPL because this is what I kind of gleaned. I had been on a board which had a major infrastructural upgrade, the airport. Mm-hmm. And prior to that upgrade, everyone talked about how bad the airport was. I'm not taking personal credit for this, of course, but I'm just telling you that's what historically happened. And as a result, people kind of welcomed this privatization / management structure that happened with NAD. And what NAD did immediately was address the number one complaint, the bathrooms, okay, which was like the thing that people couldn't deal with. But this was a very finite, very compact scenario where they could tackle one thing at a time and get to a point where now you're not hearing anything about the airport. BC is a much bigger giant than that. And there's stuff on the ground, there's stuff in the islands, there's all kinds of stuff. And the expectation that the Bahamian people had for a company to come in 6 months, which is when Matthew occurred, and all of a sudden everything was going to be changed, I think was unrealistic. So the question I'm asking you is, was Power Secure / whatever thing, were they given, in your mind, a fair shake? Was it just so complicated that they were bound to fail?
Well, given that we've had an amicable termination of the agreement, I really would not like to comment further in terms of what was agreed and what were the issues. But the public is aware that we identified serious breaches. This new board, we came on in 1st July. There were several items listed. They were given 30 days to complete it. We then came to an agreement that we will part ways. And that's as much as I would like to say. I'm not about to comment. I wasn't there when the agreement was made. I'm just...
And I'll respect that. The only thing I want to ask you, I got to be the Mr. Reporter guy, which I never like to do. And that is, I noticed that you had made a comment in the newspaper about government interference and that this was not the way forward. What did government interference play a part of some of the issues? Now, that's on y'all. That ain't on them. That's, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to comment on that.
Well, I would just say, based on our review of board documents and whatnot, that clearly BPL, and I'm not speaking to any one particular government, obviously when you're dealing, and this is the problem with politicians heading corporations, or people who, I guess, listen to the politicians, is that politicians have different constituents that they have to answer to, and so it's just human nature or part of the job to look for jobs for the boys. And so I think over the years we may have had some of that, and that's a natural.
Well, the reason I asked that, Donna, is because on the and again, I won't make many references to it, but it's the most similar scenario that I can think of, is in their lending covenants, there were very specific and very hard-line covenants, etc., with regard to government interference. I mean, even when it comes to rate increases and when the downgrade occurred, certain things had to go into place. These were things that the lenders required drastically that they put in place. Now, of course, BEC wasn't in a lending situation or a borrowing situation, I should say. No, so maybe they didn't have that kind of covenant.
We're in a borrowing situation. We have loans, but I guess they weren't. It wasn't in those covenants.
Covenants, okay. All right. So we've kind of examined, or not really because we can't talk about it, about some of the issues with the previous structure. And we all know the history of the fact that the infrastructure is decrepit. The maintenance was not great and not, I don't want to sit here and say it's because of people, but it may be because of the resources that were available. What now, right now as we speak, is the present state of BPL?
In terms of the equipment?
Equipment, management structure, efficiencies, all those things. Just what is the starting place that you're coming from?
Well, I will speak to the administrative side. I will let Whitney discuss the technical side.
What's Nicola in charge of?
Nicola is like myself, finance, and HR.
All right. Okay. All right. I just got to know who in charge of what. Okay.
And in terms of the administrative side, as I indicated, it's been a period of uncertainty for the staff. But based on my comment earlier, BPL, based on our initial analysis, the Bahamian management team was pretty much doing the heavy lifting of the corporation. So that's what we met. Okay, we met a management company, but we still have very talented Bahamian senior executives and other managers in there. And we looked at the situation. We did an analysis. And based on that, I would say that we have existing talent to manage the company. We do need additional talent. And we have been approached by some Bahamians living abroad, some locally, who are interested in helping to turn the company around. So we are in the process of reviewing them, and we will go forward and determine our choice in terms of the best fit for the corporation. But in terms of the administration, I think we have a great staff at the top. We just need to add to that, and we also need to let them manage.
Okay. So I don't know why I feel this is deja vu, and I've answered this question before, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I think I got in trouble for asking this question in my previous VU. The fact that you have a great staff makes me ask the question, what happened before? Because if they were there before, we were still, I'm 59, we were, nothing happened, and we had this need to do whatever. So what happened? What was the factor that did not allow this great staff, and I'm taking your word they are, I'm not being facetious.
I said some.
Some, to function in a way that would render the best results for the Bahamian people?
Well, if you think about your role in a private sector company, if you're able to manage and make the decisions independent of any other factors, you may run a good corporation. If you're restricted by
outside forces,
let's call it that. Also funding, because it's still on the government books. So you have a number of other forces that work against the staff at times.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Before we get into the technical, I want to switch over to the lady who you say is involved with finance. But we got a little break, and I think we're just a double team, finance team. You got the accountant, you got the finance. So we'll be right back, and we'll talk about the finances for a second. The main thing is, just take care of business, and I'll be good with you, okay? Okay. Now, we're on the air, so don't say no dates or nothing like that, because then someone may pick up. Now, I'm going to talk with Nicola Thompson. And by the way, I'm happy that you don't say Thompson, because that's a discussion we would have to have on the air. So Nicola and Darnell. Now, Darnell is an accountant, correct? And Nicola, are you an accountant too?
CPA as well.
Okay, that's just too many accountants in the room. I'm married to an accountant. It's a big problem. From a financial perspective, we've always heard, and I told you guys, and I say it to people, I'm not interested in who owed what and all that kind of stuff. It's not of my concern. What I'm concerned about is cash flow, working capital, investment capital. That's where I want to go. So, obviously, a huge receivable problem. What's happening with that? I saw the number, 40% of people who are disconnected are on. How do we resolve that leakage?
Well, one of the solutions is we're right now getting ready to start the installation for the automated metering infrastructure. And so the same way that Cable Bahamas, for example, can turn you off with the touch of the computer, BPL will be in a position to do that.
Can you turn me on with the touch of the computer too?
Yes, we'll be able to turn you back on.
Because that usually took like a 4-day thing.
Right, and so even
people told me.
Oh, right.
And even the estimated readings, all of that will be automated.
So in other words, we're going to the 21st century. Okay.
We are.
So no one will have to come to the house and read the meter.
No.
Okay. But
in fact,
so that,
right now,
that impacts leakage?
some of that is being done from a computer and in a car that drives by up and down the street.
Right.
Okay.
So,
but that how does that improve? Help me. How does that improve leakage? If just by reading meters, because you're getting more accurate readings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and also the disconnection and reconnections is controlled from a central place.
Not the brothers. Okay.
Exactly.
No, okay. The brothers them.
Huh? No more bribes.
Because you got to bribe the guy in the central control, and he knows if it's on, it's him. He can't blame it on anyone else. Is that essentially it?
You can see it.
So we're starting to close some of the holes.
The holes, okay. Now, let's talk about how do we recover. If there are 40, I don't even know what that number is, but if there are 40% of disconnected people on an illegal hookup, how do you even know they exist? What's the Whitney? This you now. We do Whitney now. We do Whitney. Just slide that over there. That's a very non-technical thing to do. How do you know? How do you detect that Ken, because he's that type of person, is hooked up? He blasting the 60-inch everything going to AC, but he is on illegally. How do you detect that?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, inside the infrastructure of BPL, you have individuals who not only read the meters, but you also have meter inspectors. Mm-hmm. The meter inspectors would be responsible for making sure that connections are, first of all, legal, that people that have been disconnected are still disconnected. They simply go out and do spot checks to make sure that people that were on the disconnection list, and if they're still on that disconnection list, their power has still been disconnected. So I think those are the primary functions of the metering department, of which you've got metering inspectors separate and apart from meter readers.
Okay, so I'm not casting any aspersions here, but that's not centralized.
No, it's not. It's not. That's the issue. And so AMI will cure that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? So even if the central control turns the person sitting at the central control desk turns someone back on, let's say it's illegal, right? You're getting reports that say who's connected, who's disconnected.
But who's reporting? See,
the computer system. The computer system.
So it picks up a signal.
That's correct.
Okay, so if he has an illegal hookup,
that's correct.
The computer system can pick that up.
That's correct.
I got to get home quick, man.
Because they could sense the energy.
That's correct.
The energy sense the signal.
So Erica, you technical too.
I'm just putting 2 and 2 together at this point.
But it's very exciting. I love it.
So
okay.
it brings us to the 21st century.
Yeah, it's exciting.
When do you think this will be brought on stream?
We are hoping within the next year. This system costs
It don't matter. We're getting it.
We're getting it.
Yeah, don't worry, but don't talk about it. We're getting it.
Just to give you a little bit more meat on the bone, so to speak. Millennial Gardens, for example, is our beta testing site.
Okay.
All of the backbone infrastructure is in there so that when we're ready to test a small sample, they will be the ones, and we'll get the sort of data that we need.
You see, I'm confused first of all, and I tell you why I'm confused. Obviously, this technology has existed for at least 20 years. Okay? I assume, all kudos to you, Miss Osborne, but I assume that, you didn't just discover this technology, that they just invented it because you took place. Why was this not implemented? Oh, we can't answer that one either.
Funding.
Okay, funding. But we were talking on the off before you came on. I don't know if you heard us about investment for the future, an investment to recoup and to move ahead. The reality is, if you invest in this, you put yourself in a better financial position.
But Ed, remember I said an important thing. If this was a private company,
you have to keep reminding me of that.
Yes, you see things that, and I have to keep reminding myself that as I walk around, and I wonder why wasn't this done, or why I have to remind myself, there are other factors and forces involved, and what may seem so simple in a private company to make a decision and it's implemented, you find the money. And you realize the return will be far different. You have other forces, and then
I understand.
Then discouragement comes, it sets in with maybe some of the managers, and then it's like it doesn't get done.
So within a 12-month period of time, Nicola and Darnell in the finance world, we're going to see control over disconnection, connection type stuff. That's number one.
So
that's a big chunk, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a big chunk?
It would be.
Okay. But there are other benefits of AMI.
Okay.
There's the ability to also detect whether some consumers, their usage needs to be adjusted. We can send a team in to recommend that maybe they look at appliances or the way
you're going FPL on me now. You're going FPL on me. I saw the commercial.
Yes.
You saw that commercial.
Yes,
okay.
You said 21st century, so there are lots of benefits, and also we can begin to go towards prepaid. Prepaid system.
Okay.
So if resources are a challenge, which we know that they are, how do you even begin to prioritize what you will address first? I mean, because obviously there's the infrastructure and the generation, and then you talk about the technology that will bring us into the 21st century. What are the priorities?
You're asking
at this
accountants.
Point?
You should know what their priority is.
Priorities are cost cutting.
That's right, cost cutting and maximizing revenue.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, I've been through this several times now, right? You go in and you look at areas where there's fluff. Okay, you look at areas where, there's a lot of wastage that goes on in government corporations. And while someone who's worked their way up in a government corporation for 30 years may not see where, they just can't imagine doing things a little differently.
We gotta have the honey buns.
Whatever the fluff, right? The advantage of having come up in the private sector is you can come and you could say, but you could do this, you could do without that, and then also in conjunction you look at the receivables. Like I can say that much about the receivables that everybody has to pay their way. You have to pay your bills because otherwise the corporation has no money. There's no money to do anything, and that's what has happened. For several years now, and which brings us to the point that we're in. But also what we're doing right now, and I guess we are almost to the end of that, is the budget. You have to look at the CapEx budget, and Whitney can speak to this, and Whitney's been having a lot of fun
doing that. And I want to talk to him. Whitney thought when I was referring to honey buns, I don't know what he was thinking I was talking about. I was literally talking about honey buns, the cakes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, because every government thing you go to, they have to have food. And I remember going one place, and they panicked because there was no food, and they went and bought a bunch of honey buns, in the paper, in the wrap. Anyway, so because it's a rule, Whitney, so we talked so receivables before we move to Whitney. Right. So we talked about the leakages with regard to illegal disconnects and the whole process. Instead of having 18 people to go through to get reconnected or disconnected, it's centralized. All right. Actual collection of receivables. Okay, I'm not dealing with specifics. There's a lot more receivables than the specifics that they were outlined in the last week or so. How do we go about recovering it? What's that number, by the way? Are we allowed to know? Do you know? We're not allowed to. Yeah, we're not allowed to know. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I don't know why. I own it. I own it, so you can tell me. Yeah. But we'll tell you another time. At the appropriate time. Okay, yes, all right. Uh-huh. Well, you can't tell me now. Anyway, so we'll leave it. I'm not here to, we're not here to do that. But there's a lot of receivables. When are we getting those?
Well, we're starting to get some now. I mean, it's an ongoing exercise of trying to encourage people to come in and pay in full, or make an arrangement to pay, and you have a few months, whatever the policy is. I think it's 3 months or 6 months, right. 6 months to pay the balance.
Has BPL gotten to a point where the elasticity in terms of pricing of the product literally put people in a position where they cannot have power, and that's why you have receivables?
Well, I would think that's how we got here. I mean,
there's some people who just don't like to pay.
Well, some people, but I'm not talking about that group of people who just feel they shouldn't pay bills like the rest of us. But right. I'm speaking about based on the fact that the economy was not performing well the last few years. Obviously, there were several people who just really they can't afford electricity.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about people who got displaced in jobs, right. etc. I'm talking about people who, based on minimum wage, they're working poor, that the cost of energy is so kind of absurd almost that they literally can't afford electricity even at the with a job.
Well, those are the reasons why we need to also in the long term look at lowering the cost of energy.
So that's where I shift to Whitney now. Okay, let's see that segue. We shifted from receivables to Whitney. So, Mr. Hasty, it's a huge. Y'all aren't giving me numbers today. I know that, but we're talking about $500 million, I would think. I mean, I'm just guessing in terms of the kind of investment that BC needs to, be normalized. Okay, where does that come from? I mean, is that where your plan? I don't know if you're going to tell me your plan, but is that where your plan comes in terms of whether you privatize, whether you get outside resources? Oh, you going back to finance now? Okay, we'll answer that one question, Nicola, if you care to, and then we'll go back to Whitney on what is needed. So where do we get the money?
We have to go out to sell the company without government guarantee.
Okay.
And again, remember, we're coming from a deficit position of legacy debt, and to make the best case to
they have to buy the debt.
We have to find a way to refinance it.
We have to finance the debt.
We have to finance that debt.
In the purchase, they have to. I'm saying that the purchaser is going to have to bear that debt.
Whichever form of financing we get, we have to factor the legacy debt into it.
It's not something that the government can assume. They just can't do it.
No.
And then, of course, you have the added challenge, since it was back to finance, of the fact that there are non-viable or challenged environments that the average company would not in the least be interested in. I think you'd call it cherry picking.
Yes, but the minister was quite clear last week that we're entertaining many proposals. However, he was very clear that whatever proposal is accepted, you cannot cherry pick the profitable.
So you're going to have a very narrow field, I think. Okay, let's go to Whitney.
Not necessarily.
Okay, tell me, is the blood up? They out there?
Lots of people are interested.
All right.
Yes. Lots of people are interested.
Okay, all right.
Because this
they know the full story?
Yes, they do, but they know that this company is fixable.
Okay,
yes,
well, that's what's important.
Potential to do well.
Okay. Whitney, This is where we come to you, unless one of the finance people want to jump in again, because they usually do when you try to talk about CapEx.
Very talented. They can speak to it.
No, it's when you talk about CapEx, they want to jump in, okay? They got to control that action, okay? Now, everyone babbles about alternate energy, okay? It's not, that easy. People talk about wind energy. There's a very small window on that, right? They talk about solar, huge investment, lot of land, maybe works in a family island or like Ragged Island, but not necessarily here. You got the what do you call it? The bio stuff, the waste thing, all kinds of stuff going on. Whitney, it's all on you. What's the best solution?
Well, I think one of the things we've looked at certainly is a hybrid solution. So let me just get the record straight. Let's get the record straight.
Get it straight.
The corporation today, or BPL, better as we know it, has sufficient infrastructure today of its own to power all of New Providence without any additional assets required on the ground.
So the capacity is there.
The capacity is physically on the ground today.
Okay.
The condition of that infrastructure is not in the best of health.
So in reality, is it?
So, but as you stated earlier, right, it takes dollars to maintain the infrastructure. And if the dollars are not available, then just like a vehicle, if you're not maintaining based on the OEM, original engine manufacturer recommendations, right, eventually that vehicle is going to start to fail in areas that it would not have had you invested in the vehicle. So I think what the board is now challenged with from the finance side, and I think Ms. Thompson spoke to that already from the finance committee, is we've got to find the ways and means to get the funds to reinvest in that equipment. I would say this. There's been a lot of talk about Clifton Pier and the state of Clifton Pier. The engines at Clifton Pier, which is about 175 megawatts, a total of 353 megawatts, is owned by the corporation. It's probably evenly split.
Between Blue Hills and
about
Clifton?
175 at Blue Hill and 175 thereabouts at Clifton Pier.
What's the demand?
The demand is at 250. This year we peaked at about 257.
So we're 100 megawatts over.
Absolutely,
capacity. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
But I want to be sincere in all of this, in as much as 40 of those megawatts at Clifton Pier are no good. We need to get rid of them.
So they don't exist.
So, well, I say they're sitting there,
right,
but they're
obsolete.
Well, yes, I think they've reached. We call it, from an engineering perspective, they've reached the end of life.
Okay.
Right, they need to be replaced. So physically on the ground in Clifton Pier, you've got about 135 megawatts of good generation there, and the engines at Clifton Pier are your most efficient engines in the fleet.
They run on the lighter.
They run on. There's two components here. There is the efficiency of the engine, and then there is the value of the oil through which you burn to get power. So not only are the engines the most efficient engines in the fleet, better than the gas turbines at Blue Hill, but they burn a better value oil because you get more power out of a barrel of heavy fuel oil than you get out of a barrel of diesel.
Isn't that also like kind of like that's the cheapest oil?
And it is also the cheaper of the two oils. Okay. Yes.
What diesel, about environmentally?
There lies. You're going to get cleaner burning with diesel. You're going to get cleaner burning with natural gas.
Right.
But there's a payoff, and there are
cost
against
benefit,
exactly.
All right. Now, this is what I've gleaned. We have 375 what do you call it? Watts?
Megawatts.
Megawatts, of which 40 is no good, so we're down to 330, 335.
It's actually 353.
353, okay. It's what do you call that when you mix numbers up? 353, 335. It's just a try. Yeah. It's 353, 335. That's the same thing. No, okay. And then we need 240. So we're still 100 in the clear.
Well, so remember, we're on an island, so you need more than what you need to meet capacity. So in the business, what you need, what we'll call it, is an N-2. You need to have sufficient generation on the island in case you lose two of your largest assets, that you can still meet your maximum capacity.
Okay.
So on an island like New Providence, you would definitely need around 310, 315.
So we had about 25 little leeway.
Right.
But you feel you need more than that to meet that backup scenario.
Yeah, and I think given in the situation, the fact that you are dealing with a government entity, right? N-2 is the premier reliability.
What the heck is
bar.
N-2?
N-2, and that's what I'm saying, right? N-2 means that the maximum capacity you need, let's call it 260, right? If you were to lose the two largest assets you have, call those 30 megawatts each, 60 megawatts, you must have two additional assets that can cover that loss of 60 megawatts.
Okay.
So you've
Where
got
did
to
you find
that.
this guy? This is a good guy.
You see why I bring him with me all the time?
So I know there's some transitioning going on here. I hope you got the money to pay him. Okay. You saw that, Erica?
I was very impressed.
Yeah. Because I know about N-2 now. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Good evening, Ed Fields, live here with Erica Wells Cox and Kendrick Williams, and we have Darnell Osborne, who's the chairman of the board of BPL, and Nicola Thompson, who is the financial people on the board at BPL. And I almost feel I have to say it. I mean, I feel like I'm witnessing something. I know they're not going to tell me anything, but I feel like I'm witnessing something. We're hearing it. We're hearing expertise at a very senior level to be. I think. I don't. You know what? This is my show, damn it, and I'm going to guess, and y'all don't have to confirm anything, that this guy is going to be the guy. I'm telling you, because we've heard it. I mean, who else knows about N-2?
I have never met anybody who knows about N-2.
Okay, all right.
No comment.
I know it now, but they're going to make me the general manager. I can tell you that. All right? So congratulations, sir. Listen, this has been very informative. We got a couple more minutes. We got about half hour more to go. So capacity is not the issue, although it is. It is. You get -2 on that because it is an issue because even though we have it sitting on the ground, some of it is no good. We haven't gotten up to full speed at Bahamar, so there's going to be some pressure there. If we're going to do any future investment, we can't be on the brink. Correct? That's correct. And so we gotta get it together on the capacity issue. Now let's talk about the fuel. We're running with oil and diesel and caveman stuff. Where do we get to where we need modern methods to fuel our country at a lower cost, which has a huge multiplier effect on the economy? So where's that next step, Mr. General Manager, sir?
So like I started to say, so there's a several step approach, right? One of the things the chair said is, first of all, we want
Excuse me, stop a minute. Next time, just send him. I appreciate you, Darnell. I do. Okay? I appreciate you and Nicola, but if you got to send one, send him. Okay.
Noted.
Okay. You know I can call you again, man. You know I can call you again. All I'm doing is accolading. I'm making your job easier. Now, and by the way, I'll talk about that at the end of the show because I got something I want to say about that. But no, so where do we go next?
Yeah, so one of the things the chair has been saying is, first of all, the first job is to stabilize the system. And so what the Agrecos, the rental generation, have done in the absence of having the capacity on the island that we needed to carry us through the summer was to bring in rental generation to stabilize the system. Mm-hmm. And so as we know, there's two sides of the operating side of the house, and that would be the generation side of the house, and then there's the transmission and distribution side of the house. And so seeing that we're talking about generation, let's focus on generation. Our intent is that eventually the 80 megawatts of rental generation has to go away.
It's too costly to maintain.
Rental-wise. Rental-wise, that's correct. That's correct.
The rent is too costly.
That's correct. And so the question is, when we do replace that 80 megawatt, what is the best option for the Bahamian people in terms of costs? Well, one option obviously is solar. A second option is all under the renewable umbrella is LNG. Mm-hmm. A third option is waste energy, right? So you look at all of these type of renewable options out there. Mm-hmm. We as a board are looking at all options, and we've put all options on the table, and we're in the process of evaluating all of those options because we know we have to bring some new generation to fold here. Mm-hmm. And so once we decide what that is, and that gives us the best price options for the Bahamian people, that's what we're going to move towards.
Okay. Now, that's only going to be a portion of the overall capacity, but I assume the blended rate, because I mean, I don't know if that makes.
That's correct.
Am
That's
I
correct.
Making sense? Okay.
You are making sense. Yes.
Okay. That the average rate.
That's correct. Blended rate is good.
Yeah. Well, we got to talk average to average folks. So the average rate then, when you blend in the cheaper generation source with the existing generation, will result in a cheaper rate.
Right.
But is the overall goal to replace some of the older generation over time with the cheaper source?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's what we're trying to make the evaluation from a technical perspective. We have to look at the age of the equipment. What is that equipment costing us today in maintenance costs, even if you bring it back to what we would call nameplate capacity?
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, an engine that's rated, a generator that's rated for 30 megawatts, you may only be getting 20 megawatts out of it.
Because of the efficiency?
Because of the inefficiencies that you've got quite a number of things that's going wrong with the equipment. And so when you look at what it takes to bring it back to nameplate capacity or its true capacity versus bringing in new generation to offset that new capacity, that increase to get it back to nameplate capacity, that's some of the things that we're in the process of evaluating today. At the end of the day, the goal and objective is not just to stabilize, but to strengthen and then diversify.
Okay.
Right. So it's a 3-step approach here, right? And so that's what we want to get to: diversification in our generation fleet.
Now, I want to go to the transmission side, but before we do that, I want to ask you this question. So obviously, do you know this stuff? We know this stuff. Darnell knows this stuff. Nicole knows this stuff. You know this stuff. But the reality is we don't have the capital, so that's why you have to bring an outside investor, correct? Is that the only reason?
Well, that's the reason why we have to
You know how to defer, boy. That's why you can make it good. You can make it good.
Well, that's why we've decided as a board and with government support to go out for an RFP to attract creative thinking in terms of how we should finance and what we should do.
But the bottom line is the government doesn't have the capital.
No, the government, no. Private, private.
All right.
And as we indicated, we have several people interested. We have several companies.
Make sure whoever you get, they keep him. Now, the transmission side, okay? We switch back to the expert. So you could have all of this wonderful, reliable generation, and the engine could be purring wonderfully. But then you got cables, you got stuff underground, you got stuff overground. Things happen, trees and this and that. That's a huge piece. So how do we now stabilize that? And one of the things I've never understood about BEC, no matter how distressed it was why they didn't have some sort of sinking fund or some sort of allocation of resources, $10 million a year, I don't know, whatever it is, to say every year we're going to put stuff underground. We live in a hurricane zone, for crying out loud. You got there on Junkanoo Beach. By the way, I'm making a personal appeal. This is my opportunity. I'll talk to you about it later. On Junkanoo Beach, there's a stretch of wire. It looks like crap, and it's on the beach. It should be underground. The sea is right. The sand is right there. You can stick it underground because it's just going to keep getting knocked over. But why is it that we not apply, having some kind of fund that says this is our underground fund, and we're going to put stuff underground every year? Is that viable? Is that making sense?
Certainly, the Bahamian people would love to pay for that. I think one of the things that we have to recognize is overhead is a whole lot cheaper than underground. Now, there are some benefits to underground.
Overhead installation,
Yes, overhead installation is a whole lot cheaper than underground installation. There's a lot of benefits to underground. One is certainly you have a hurricane comes through, your underground system, you'll be back up in no time. Mm-hmm. The other thing is aesthetically. You go into the subdivisions, people prefer underground as opposed to seeing poles and wires. Right. I think what we need to, first of all, address, though, is that the fact that on the generation side of the house, when we brought in the 80 megawatts, we had almost 400 megawatts on this island, but there are still, areas what we'll call brownouts as opposed to blackouts where we lose the entire island. And so it's a clear indication that generation is not the only area that needed some attention. We also got to look at we have to look at the transmission and distribution, and just so that everybody's on the same page. Transmission is the spot from what brings the power from the generating side of the house to the substation, right? And it's really at the high voltages. And then when we talk about distribution, it's the side that takes it from the substation to the residents or the businesses. So both, and the predominant amount of issues we're having is in the distribution side of the house, not the transmission side of the house.
Right. So think about this, folks, like plumbing.
There you go.
You got a big pipe, You got a medium pipe and you got a small pipe.
That's
and
correct.
you tell me we got problems with the small pipe.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the
See how I
issue,
broke that, Nicola?
Yeah. And the issue, and so the issue when you get into, and we call it the T&D side of the house.
Okay.
The issue when you get on the T&D side of the house is what we have not done successfully here is we have not looked at areas of growth and areas of demographic shift.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have conductors or pipes that were sized to carry so much load,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden the demographic shoots to the west and to the south, and then those pipes cannot carry as much as you would like for them to carry, and you try to force more down them, they just simply give way.
Yeah,
right?
Short circuit.
Exactly.
Whatever.
And so when someone sees sporadic outages that's taking place, it's because, and so what we've decided to do as a board, and this is where the chair has gone back and said, needs assessment. Right, we know on the distribution side of the house we have to do a study on the distribution side of the network to see exactly where the loads are and where the systems need to be strengthened. And then from that we build a plan around that and focus our attention on those.
You got a lot of leaky pipes.
Absolutely.
And this is the problem, by the way, with the water and sewage. I mean, they're losing, 30, 40, 50% of the water in the ground. Right. So you're saying that the equivalent of that is that you've got all of these riggings going on that just can't handle the load, and it ends up with
I would use the word riggings. I mean,
I say that to the sense that you're forcing it. You said, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying it's conductors. It's the wires that's along the poles are simply not sized to carry the load. Mm-hmm. And when you have a large population shift to an area,
like the South,
right, like the South, exactly. You now expect everyone there to be serviced by having sufficient current, and the lines can't carry that.
And of course, this is another factor of resources, because in theory you should be having a wing of your operation that's just laying cable for future development, correct?
And there is. So within the T&D arm of the house, there's the construction department, right? That actually goes out and put in new infrastructure. That's not where the issue lies. The issue lies in understanding where to upsize cables or wires or conductors.
But you still got problems, Whitney, where people are building houses and they got to run they got to pay absorbent fees for, what do you call those things? Transformers and wire to be run to their lot in the back of the bush.
That is no different than anywhere else in the world.
That's the normal?
That's normal. That's
even
normal.
On a main road?
Well, so obviously now, if it is that you're off the beaten path.
Yeah, I get off the beat. If you want to live in the bush, that's up to you. But I'm talking about on the main road.
No, if the infrastructure is there, it's simply a matter of going from the pole to what we call the service line to your home.
Right.
There should be no cost. That's right. But if it is that the power company now needs to put in poles and wires to get to you, that's a cost.
Another thing. So transmission, we got 5 minutes, but you got to come back, okay? I'm inviting you back, Darnell. You can come. And you too, Nicola. This seems like insurmountable to me. When I say insurmountable, there's a lot of wires, okay? And you're telling me that a lot of wires have to be replaced.
No, what I'm saying is the need assessment has to be conducted first, and see whether or not there may be areas where the area is already strengthened, and maybe we can shift some load, because in a lot of areas within New Providence, and we've just focused on New Providence. I mean, there's issues from Abaco all the way down to Inago that we have not even talked about here in the show, right? So, but let's stick with New Providence, right? There are areas in New Providence where the wires are sized adequately, and maybe rather than trying to send it all down East Street, maybe you can take another route and still come back and service the folks on the south side of East Street without going, from north to south.
But now that's an interesting thing, because we don't want to talk about transmission anymore like that. I'm bored with that now. So let's talk about the grid.
Yes.
Okay. And so what you just said to me, because we have a problem, right? And that is when something shuts down, you can't backfeed it from somewhere else. That's correct. If we're in the States, you could go to Boca Raton and pull in something or whatever the deal is. So what you just talked about coming back and all that.
Right.
Does that help with some redundancy?
Yes. So what we try to do when we're building T&D systems is build redundant systems, so that if the one lateral goes out, you can what we call backfeed it from the other way, and the customers is not impacted negatively.
Do we have that capacity now?
In a lot of areas of New Providence, we do have that capacity. But what we need to understand is rather than just arbitrarily doing things, we need to understand what we're doing, and that's where the need assessment needs to take place.
Okay. I'm going to spend, we got like 3 more minutes. So the 2 of these minutes are going to be spent on begging. And that is, I need you guys to come back. Okay, because there's a lot of stuff to go over here. And I'm also going to be pledging you can't go anywhere else till you come back, which is going to be next week. What is today? Monday is a holiday? No. I'm going to kick someone off the show. I'm going to tell him he has to come back.
Monday's not a holiday.
No, next Monday is. So I'm not inviting, I'm asking you to come and finish this stuff on Monday, if you don't mind, because this is good stuff. This is stuff that people want to hear. They need to know. It's simple stuff. They just need to.
It helps you understand the situation.
Yeah, because otherwise you're gone. Because when the light go out, they ain't understand this. They only want to know why the light out. So I try to help you. I try to preserve your situation, Darnell Osborne. Okay? No, in all seriousness, it's very, very informative stuff. And what I wanted to say is I'm extremely impressed with the board. I mean, I only met 3 of you, but this is a kind of professionalism that is required. I'm extremely impressed with Mr. Hasty. I'm, of course, very impressed with Miss Thompson over there. I don't know why she burst out laughing. I was doing something and she burst out laughing. And Darnell, I have to say that I'm very impressed with you. And the reason I am is because it is important for someone who is put in the position you are in to be able to take the input of those who know what they're doing. Because if you don't, then we got a horse and pony show and nothing's happening. So I'm extremely impressed. I hope the Bahamian people give you the chance, you and the board, the chance to get this thing right. I'm 59. I'm sure there's people who are 62 who's saying the same thing, because in 59 years we've not, in my view. Well, I'm going to take a little digression. I had an uncle who was the general manager, Peter Bethel. He ran a tight ship. You know Peter? Okay, he ran a tight ship. Even Leslie Miller will tell you there wasn't a tight ship before. He was the last tight ship. But we're not going to downgrade everyone else.
This is a new type ship.
This is a different ship. This is the aircraft carrier. That was a frigate. Okay, so I just want to congratulate you all. I want to invite you to. You have to say yes if you're coming, yes or no. Now, on Monday to the show. Okay, you coming, Darnell?
I think so. I just have to check my calendar.
Man, I canceling someone. You can cancel someone too.
You don't know who you're canceling.
I know who I'm canceling.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, man, I cancel. I'll even say who I'm canceling. I'm canceling Damien Gomez. They can call Damien right after and say canceling you. You got to come on another time. All right. So I need for you folks to come back. Yeah, even all 3. I'm even saying 3.
You sure you want me back?
I want you back. Okay, I want you back. It's like little Michael Jackson stuff. Very informative stuff. And I really appreciate you guys coming. And you see, I told you we didn't need to prepare questions. You know your stuff, so you don't need to prepare anything. All right, thank you very much, Darnell, Whitney, and Nicola.
Thank you.
It's the 3 BPL Stooges, huh? What's that? The traveling show, and I'm glad that Desmond Bannister, who's your minister, say no, go with them, don't go with me. All right. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll see part 2 on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.